The space station hung in the black void like a giant metal flower. Its silver arms stretched out from a central hub, each one the size of a small city. This was the Galactic Council Station, the most important place in known space. Today, it would witness something that would change the galaxy forever. Ambassador Jake Morrison walked through the station's long corridors. His black diplomatic suit was perfectly pressed, but his face showed the strain of 3 sleepless nights. Behind him walked Colonel Lisa Hayes, her military uniform sharp and clean. She kept one hand near her sidearm, though weapons were forbidden in the diplomatic zone. Old habits died hard for a soldier. Dr. Ben Carter hurried to keep up with their longer strides. The scientist carried a thick folder of documents under his arm. Inside were proposals, charts, and data that represented months of careful work. He hoped they would not need the backup plans hidden in the folder's back pages. The human delegation had traveled for 6 weeks to reach this place. Their ship was small compared to the massive alien vessels docked at the station, but they had come here with hope. 3 years of fighting along the border colonies had cost too many lives. It was time for peace. The main council chamber was enormous. The ceiling stretched up so high that clouds could have formed near the top. 12 different species had representatives here today. Each one sat at specially designed desks that matched their unique body shapes. The air smelled of ozone and strange alien scents that made Morrison's nose itch. High Commander Veltar dominated the Zephyrian section. His species looked like giant insects with blue-black shells and 6 arms. When he spoke, his voice buzzed, like an angry wasp. He had led the attacks on human colonies for the past 3 years. Morrison tried not to stare at the aliens' razor-sharp claws. The Altarian mediator called Chancellor Kixmoth floated above his platform. His species had no solid form, appearing as shifting clouds of glowing gas. Different colors swirled through, his body as emotions changed. Right now, he glowed a cold blue that Morrison had learned meant impatience. Morrison took his seat at the human table. It was smaller than the others and placed slightly lower, a subtle insult that he chose to ignore. Colonel Hayes sat to his right, her eyes constantly scanning the room for threats. Dr. Carter settled on his left, nervously arranging his papers. Chancellor, Kixmoth's voice echoed through the chamber like distant thunder. We gather today to end the conflict between the Zephyrian Empire and the human colonies. The Council has prepared terms that will bring lasting peace. Morrison leaned forward. This was what they had come for. 3 years of war had devastated the outer human settlements. Families had fled their homes. Children had grown up in bomb shelters. If peace was possible, he would take almost any reasonable deal. High Commander Veltar rose to his full height of 8 feet. His shell gleamed under the chamber's lights. The human expansion must stop. Their colonies threaten the natural order of this galaxy. We demand complete withdrawal from the disputed systems. The aliens' words hit Morrison like physical blows. Complete withdrawal meant abandoning millions of human settlers. It meant giving up worlds that humans had lived on for generations. He kept his face calm, but his hands tightened into fists under the table. Furthermore, Veltar continued, humans must accept protective oversight from the Council. Their rapid expansion shows they cannot be trusted to govern themselves. All human military vessels must be reduced to half their current numbers. Dr. Carter made a small choking sound. Colonel, Hayes's jaw tightened until Morrison thought her teeth might crack. Protective oversight was just a fancy term for occupation. They wanted to turn humanity into a puppet species. Morrison stood slowly. High Commander, we appreciate the Council's efforts to bring peace. However, humans cannot abandon our colonies. These are our homes, our families. Perhaps we could discuss joint administration of the disputed zones. A sound like grinding metal came from the crystalline hegemony section. Their representative looked like a walking pile of sharp-edged diamonds. When it spoke, its voice sounded like breaking glass. Humans presume too much. Your species has existed in space for barely 2 centuries. You are children playing with dangerous toys. Laughter echoed through the chamber. Not human laughter, but the alien equivalent from a dozen different species. Morrison felt heat rise in his cheeks, but he kept his voice level. We may be young as a spacefaring species, but we have earned our place here through hard work and sacrifice. Chancellor. Kixmoth's colors shifted to angry red. The Council has been patient with human aggression, but patience has limits. You will accept these terms or face the consequences. Dr. Carter leaned close to Morrison's ear. Sir, I have the backup proposals. We prepared for this. But Morrison shook his head slightly. He could read the room. No amount of compromise would satisfy these aliens. They had already decided humanity's fate before the talks began. High Commander Veltar produced a crystal datapad. I present evidence of human war crimes, illegal genetic experiments on captured Zephyrian soldiers, torture and murder of prisoners. Morrison's blood ran cold. The images on the display were horrific, but they were also impossible. Humans had strict laws about prisoner treatment. Dr. Carter was already shaking his head, pulling out his own data to dispute the claims. But Morrison could see that the other aliens accepted the evidence without question. The vote came quickly. 11 species voted to impose the harsh terms on humanity. Only the humans voted against. The sanctions would begin immediately. Human ships would be inspected at every border. Human colonies would pay tribute to the injured parties. Human military strength would be cut in half. Morrison sat in stunned silence for a long moment. Colonel Hayes placed a hand on his shoulder. Sir, she whispered, what are your orders? The ambassador looked around the chamber at the alien faces. Some showed satisfaction. Others looked bored, as if this had been a minor inconvenience in their day. None showed any respect for humanity or recognition of what they had just done. Morrison stood slowly. His voice carried clearly through the vast chamber. The human delegation respectfully declines these terms. The chatter stopped instantly. 12 species turned to stare at the small group of humans. High Commander Veltar's claws clicked against his desk. You refuse the Council's wisdom? We refuse to be enslaved, Morrison replied calmly. We came here in good faith hoping for real peace. Instead, we find a trial where the verdict was decided before we arrived. He gathered his papers with steady hands. The human delegation withdraws from these proceedings. Colonel Hayes and Dr. Carter stood with him. The 3 humans walked toward the chamber's exit with their heads held high. Behind them, alien voices rose in what sounded like amusement. They thought humanity was retreating in defeat. Morrison paused at the doorway and looked back one last time. Members of the Galactic Council, you have made your choice. Now humanity will make ours. The chamber doors closed behind them with a sound like thunder. In the corridor, Dr. Carter was already on his communicator, sending coded messages to Earth. Colonel Hayes checked her sidearm and looked ready for a fight. What now, sir? She asked. Morrison straightened his jacket and smiled grimly. Now we show them what humans do when we're pushed into a corner. We survive, we adapt, and we get stronger. The 3 humans walked through the alien station toward their small ship. None of them looked back. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued its session, confident that they had solved their human problem. They had no idea that they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. 3 months had passed since the humans walked out of the Galactic Council chamber. At first, the alien species celebrated what they thought was an easy victory. High Commander Veltar announced that humanity had finally learned its place. The crystalline hegemony prepared to claim the abandoned human territories. But something strange was happening across the galaxy. Captain Amy Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Wanderer, watching her crew work with quiet efficiency. Through the main screen, she could see Research Station Echo 7 floating in the darkness of space. The station had served as humanity's primary science outpost in the neutral zone for 15 years. Today, they would shut it down forever. Begin evacuation procedures, Rodriguez ordered. Her voice stayed calm, but inside, she felt sick. Echo 7 had been her first assignment as a young lieutenant. She had met her husband there. Their daughter had taken her first steps in the station's low-gravity sections. Now they were abandoning it all. Lieutenant Paul Kim looked up from his communications console. Captain, we're getting hails from 3 different alien ships. They want to know what we're doing. Maintain radio silence, Rodriguez replied. We don't owe them any explanations. The evacuation continued for 6 hours. Every piece of valuable equipment was loaded onto cargo ships. Every computer was wiped clean. Every research sample was carefully packed and secured. The humans left nothing behind that could be useful to their enemies. Dr. Martinez, the station's chief scientist, supervised the final checks. He had spent 10 years developing new alloys in Echo 7's laboratories. His work had helped build stronger hulls for human ships. Now he watched as his life's work disappeared into storage containers. All clear, Captain, he reported with a heavy heart. The station is empty. Rodriguez nodded and turned to her weapons officer. Set charges on the reactor core. I want nothing left but scrap metal. The Wanderer pulled away from the station, just as the charges exploded. Echo 7 vanished in a brief flash of light. Where humanity's greatest research station had been, only twisted metal and debris remained. Rodriguez did not look back. Similar scenes played out across dozens of star systems. Human cargo ships disappeared from major trade routes overnight. Independent stations that had relied on human support went silent. Mining operations that had fed raw materials to alien worlds simply stopped working. On the core world of New Geneva, President Kate Sullivan sat in the Situation Room with her top advisors. The walls displayed star maps showing the progress of Operation Homecoming. Red dots marked human assets that had been successfully evacuated. Green dots showed alien territories that would soon feel the impact of humanity's withdrawal. General, Rick Barnes pointed to a cluster of red dots near the Zephyrian border. The last civilian transports cleared the zone 6 hours ago. All military assets are falling back to defensive positions around our core systems. Admiral Susan Clark added her report. The fleet consolidation is ahead of schedule. We now have concentrated firepower around 17 key systems. Any alien force that wants to attack us will face our entire military strength. President Sullivan studied the maps carefully. The human sphere of influence looked much smaller now, but it was also much stronger, like a fist closing tight. What about the economic impact on alien territories? Dr. Carter, now serving as Special Advisor on Alien Affairs, consulted his tablet. The effects are already showing. The Centauri Trading Consortium reports a 30% drop in cargo traffic. 3 major shipping lanes have become economically unviable without human vessels. The aliens had not expected this. They thought humanity would submit to the Council's demands within weeks. Instead, every human ship, station, and settlement outside the core systems had vanished like smoke. The galaxy was discovering how much it had depended on human industry and innovation. Captain Rodriguez received new orders as the Wanderer approached the Kepler system. Her ship was part of the final phase of the withdrawal. The last human presence in disputed territory was Mining Station Bravo 4, which supplied rare minerals to half a dozen alien worlds. The station manager, a gruff man named Pete Wilson, met Rodriguez at the airlock. 23 years I've run this place, he said sadly. Built it from nothing but rock and determination. I know it's hard, Pete, Rodriguez replied, but we can't leave anything for them to steal. The mining station had been incredibly productive. Its automated systems had extracted more minerals per day than entire alien mining fleets. The technology was uniquely human, designed to work in conditions that would kill most alien species. Now that technology would be destroyed rather than captured. Rodriguez watched as the demolition team set their charges. The explosions came in sequence, collapsing tunnels and destroying equipment. What had taken decades to build was gone in minutes. The aliens could have the empty rock that remained. News of humanity's withdrawal reached the Galactic Council after 2 months. Chancellor Kixmoth's colors shifted to confused purple as he read the reports. Human settlements were empty. Human ships had vanished from neutral space. Human traders no longer appeared at alien markets. High Commander Veltar was furious. They think they can defy the Council by running away like cowards. We will hunt them down and force compliance. But when Zephyrian ships reached the abandoned human outposts, they found only empty shells. Every piece of useful technology had been removed or destroyed. The bases that remained were worthless. Worse, they discovered that the humans had been far more advanced than anyone realized. The empty laboratories contained equipment designs that alien scientists could barely understand. The economic consequences grew worse each week. On the trading world of Nexus Prime, merchants complained that human-made precision instruments were impossible to replace. The quality of alien alternatives was far inferior. Prices for basic goods began to rise as supply chains collapsed. Medical facilities across 3 star systems faced critical shortages. Human pharmaceutical companies had produced drugs that no alien species could replicate. Without access to human research and manufacturing, several planets faced health crises. The Altarian government sent secret messages to other council members, expressing concern about the situation. Their own economy depended heavily on trade with human colonies. With that trade gone, unemployment was rising and civil unrest was beginning. Meanwhile, in human space, a different kind of activity was increasing. The scientists and engineers who had abandoned their outer posts were not sitting idle. They were working on new projects with desperate intensity. Dr. Carter coordinated research efforts across dozens of facilities. Every mind that had been wasted on alien negotiations was now focused on purely human advancement. President Sullivan addressed the nation from her office on New Geneva. My fellow humans, 3 months ago we faced a choice. We could accept slavery disguised as peace, or we could choose our own path. We chose freedom. Now we must prove that choice was right. The president's words were broadcast to every human world. In factories, laboratories, and military bases, people worked with new purpose. They had been insulted and dismissed by alien species. Now they would show what humans could accomplish when they stopped trying to please others. Captain Rodriguez docked the Wanderer at New Geneva's main station. Her ship's cargo holds were full of rescued equipment and evacuated personnel. But more importantly, they carried data and knowledge that would fuel humanity's next phase. As she walked through the station corridors, Rodriguez saw the determination in every human face. They had withdrawn from alien space not in defeat, but in preparation. The galaxy thought humanity had given up. Soon they would learn how wrong they were. 1 year had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. In the hidden laboratories of New Geneva, Dr. Elena Vasquez stared at her computer screen with exhaustion and excitement. The numbers were impossible, but they were also real. She had just solved a problem that had puzzled human scientists for decades. "It works," she whispered to her assistant, Dr. Gary Foster. "Quantum communication across unlimited distance. We can talk to anyone, anywhere, instantly." Foster looked at the data streaming across the monitor. The test had sent a message to a research station on the far side of human space. The reply came back instantly, not after the usual hours of delay. "This changes everything," he said quietly. Down. The hall engineer Tony Martinez was having his own breakthrough. The new engine design spread across his workshop table looked nothing like traditional human spacecraft. Instead of burning fuel, it twisted space itself. Ships equipped with this drive could move faster than anything in the known galaxy. Martinez wiped grease from his hands and called his team together. "We tested the prototype this morning. The results are beyond what we hoped for. This engine makes our ships 3 times faster than Zephyrian vessels." The isolation had forced human creativity into overdrive. Without access to alien technology, human engineers had to invent everything from scratch. But this challenge had produced incredible results. Cut off from the galaxy, humanity was becoming something new and dangerous. Colonel Lisa Hayes, now promoted to general, walked through the secret military facility on Titan Station. The asteroid base had been carved from solid rock and hidden from alien sensors. Inside, human engineers were building weapons that would shock the galaxy. The new destroyers looked sleek and deadly. Their hulls were made from metal alloys that Dr. Martinez had developed on Echo 7 before its destruction. The weapon systems used principles that alien science had never discovered. Most importantly, the ships were nearly invisible to conventional sensors. "How many are ready for deployment?" Hayes asked Captain Danny Wright, her chief of staff. 12 destroyers and 4 heavy cruisers, Wright replied, all equipped with the new stealth systems and quantum communications. They can coordinate attacks across multiple star systems simultaneously. Hayes nodded with satisfaction. The aliens thought humanity was finished as a military force. They would soon learn otherwise. But weapons were only part of the picture. The economic war was, proving just as effective. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations were discovering how much they had depended on human innovation. The Centauri Trading Consortium faced bankruptcy as shipping costs doubled without human cargo vessels. Their own ships were slower and less efficient than the human designs they had taken for granted. On the medical world of Hippocrates Prime, Dr. Zekthar struggled with a growing crisis. The healing chambers that treated severe injuries required precision components that only human factories had produced. Without replacement parts, the chambers were failing one by one. "How many patients can we no longer treat?" the alien doctor asked his assistant. "Nearly 40% of severe trauma cases," came the grim reply. "The human medical technology was more advanced than we realized. Our own equipment cannot match its effectiveness." Similar problems plagued dozens of worlds. Manufacturing plants that had used human-designed tools found their production dropping. Communication networks that relied on human quantum relays began failing. Even simple items like the precision instruments used in alien laboratories were impossible to replace. Admiral Rodriguez, now commanding the human deep space reconnaissance fleet, reviewed intelligence reports from across the galaxy. Her ships moved unseen through alien territory, gathering information about the growing crisis. "The Zephyrian economy has contracted by 25%, her intelligence officer reported. "Their expansion plans are stalled because they cannot replace the mining equipment we destroyed." Rodriguez studied the star charts on her command screen. 3 major trade routes had collapsed entirely. 2 alien species were facing civil unrest as unemployment rose. The galaxy was learning that humanity had been far more important than anyone realized. President Sullivan called an emergency meeting of her cabinet. The reports from across human space were encouraging but also concerning. Their isolation was working, but it would not last forever. The aliens would eventually adapt or attack. "Our quantum communication network is complete," Dr. Vasquez reported via video link. "Every human world can now coordinate instantly. No alien force can prevent us from sharing information." General Hayes presented the military situation. "Our new fleet is ready for deployment. Stealth ships armed with weapons that alien defenses cannot stop. But we need to decide how to use this advantage." Admiral Clark added her analysis. "The alien economies are failing faster than we predicted. Several species are facing internal problems. But the Galactic Council is planning something. Our spies report increased military activity." President Sullivan listened to each report carefully. Humanity had used its year of isolation well. They were stronger, more advanced, and more united than ever before. But the real test was coming. Dr. Carter, monitoring alien communication channels, brought disturbing news. "The Council is preparing to send a joint military force to human space. They plan to occupy our core worlds and force submission, the FAO." Room fell silent. Everyone knew this moment would come eventually. The aliens could not allow humanity's defiance to succeed. It would encourage other species to resist Council authority. "How long do we have?" Sullivan asked. 6 months, maybe. Less, Carter replied. "They are assembling fleets from 8 different species, the largest military force in galactic history." Sullivan stood and walked to the window overlooking New Geneva's capital city. Below, millions of humans went about their daily lives, unaware that war was coming. They trusted their leaders to protect them. She would not let them down. "Then we use our advantages while we still can," she decided. "General Hayes, prepare to deploy the stealth fleet. Admiral Clark, position our main forces for maximum defensive effect. Dr. Vasquez, I want quantum communication links with every human settlement." The president turned back to face her advisors. For 1 year, We have hidden from the galaxy and built our strength in secret. The aliens think we are weak and defeated. Soon, they will learn how wrong they are. What are your orders, Madam President? Hayes asked. Sullivan smiled grimly. We stop hiding. It's time to remind the galaxy that humanity does not surrender. When their fleets arrive in our space, they will face humans fighting on our own terms, with weapons they have never seen. The meeting ended with quiet determination. Across human space, the final preparations began. The year of isolation was ending. The year of reckoning was about to begin. 2 years after walking away from the peace table, humanity broke its silence in the most shocking way possible. Across 7 different star systems, massive human fleets appeared at the same moment. They materialized out of empty space like ghosts becoming solid, their stealth systems deactivating in perfect coordination. Admiral Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, humanity's newest and most powerful warship. Around her, the bridge crew worked with calm efficiency. Through the main screen, she could see the Zephyrian homeworld hanging in space like a blue-green jewel. Today, that world would witness something that would change everything. All ships report ready, Admiral, her communications officer announced. Quantum links are stable across all 7 battle groups. Rodriguez nodded. The quantum communication system allowed instant coordination across vast distances, while she commanded the fleet at the Zephyrian homeworld. 6 other admirals led identical demonstrations at the capitals of the other council members who had voted against humanity. Open a channel to all frequencies, Rodriguez ordered. It's time to deliver our message. Her face appeared on screens across the galaxy. Human, alien, and neutral worlds all received the same broadcast simultaneously. When she spoke, her voice was calm, but carried the weight of humanity's accumulated anger. To the members of the Galactic Council, she began. 2 years ago, you chose to treat humanity as subjects rather than equals. You demanded our submission and mocked our capabilities. You called us primitive and weak. We chose to withdraw rather than accept your terms. High Commander Veltar watched the broadcast from his command center on the Zephyrian homeworld. Through his windows, he could see the human fleet hanging in space like a collection of deadly stars. The ships were unlike anything he had ever seen, sleek, dark, and bristling with weapons that his sensors could not identify. Now we return, Rodriguez continued, not as supplicants begging for scraps, but as equals demanding respect. For 2 years, you celebrated what you thought was our surrender. You divided our abandoned territories among yourselves. You congratulated each other on putting the upstart humans in their place. On the crystalline hegemony homeworld, the diamond-like, beings watched human ships perform impossible maneuvers. The vessels moved through space as if the laws of physics were merely suggestions. They accelerated without visible engines, turned without momentum, and appeared and disappeared at will. But you made a mistake, Rodriguez said, her voice growing harder. You assumed that because we left your table, we had given up. You never considered that we might use that time to become something you could not ignore or control. President Sullivan watched the broadcast from her office on New Geneva. Around her stood the leaders who had guided humanity through 2 years of isolation and growth. General Hayes smiled grimly as alien news reports flooded in, describing panic and confusion across the galaxy. The human fleet demonstrations were perfectly choreographed. Each battle group performed the same series of maneuvers, showing off capabilities that should have been impossible. Ships that appeared on sensors suddenly vanished completely. Weapons fired beams of energy that passed through space faster than light itself. Dr. Carter monitored alien communication channels, listening to the chaos spreading through their networks. The Zephyrian High Command is in emergency session, he reported. Their military analysts are calling our technology impossible and beyond current understanding. Chancellor Kixmoth of the Altarians flickered through colors that indicated extreme distress. His species had been mediating galactic conflicts for thousands of years, but they had never seen anything like this. The human ships represented a level of advancement that changed everything they thought they knew about the balance of power. The galaxy wanted to see what humans could do when pushed to the wall, Rodriguez announced, her image broadcast to billions of watching aliens. Well, now you know. We did not break under your pressure. We did not submit to your demands. Instead, we went home and built something better. The economic data supported her words. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations struggled with supply shortages and collapsed trade routes. The Centauri Trading Consortium had declared bankruptcy the previous month. 3 minor species faced complete economic collapse without access to human technology and expertise. On the medical world of Hippocrates Prime, Dr. Zekthar watched the broadcast while surrounded by failing equipment. Half of his healing chambers were offline, their human-made components impossible to replace. Patients who could have been saved were dying because alien technology simply was not advanced enough. You treated us like children who needed guidance, Rodriguez continued. You offered us protective oversight as if we were too primitive to govern ourselves. You demanded tribute as if we were your conquered vassals. But children grow up, and the weak sometimes become strong. High Commander Veltar's claws clicked nervously against his command console. His own intelligence reports painted a terrifying picture. The human fleet was larger than expected. Their technology was beyond anything in the galactic database, and they had achieved this advancement in complete secrecy. The false evidence he had presented 2 years ago now seemed like a catastrophic error. The genetic experiments that never happened, the war crimes that were pure fiction, all of it designed to justify treating humans as dangerous primitives. Now those primitives had returned with capabilities that made the Zephyrian Empire look backward by comparison. Some of you may be wondering about our intentions, Rodriguez said, addressing the obvious question that every alien leader was asking. We are not here to conquer or destroy. We are here to establish a new reality. The days of human deference to alien authority are over. The demonstration reached its climax as all 7 human fleets performed a synchronized jump. One moment they were visible, the next they had vanished completely. Seconds later, they reappeared in different positions, having moved distances that should have taken hours in mere heartbeats. President Sullivan stepped forward for the final part of the message. Her face replaced Rodriguez's on screens across the galaxy. The Galactic Council demanded our submission 2 years ago. We refused then and we refuse now. But we are not unreasonable. We are willing to discuss new terms based on mutual respect and genuine equality. The broadcast ended with a simple message scrolling across screens in every known language. The human delegation will be available for negotiations at New Geneva. We suggest you bring better terms this time. In the silence that followed, the human fleets began to withdraw. They departed as suddenly as they had arrived, leaving behind only the memory of their impossible capabilities. But the message was clear. Humanity was no longer the weak species that could be bullied and dismissed. High Commander Veltar stared at the empty space where the human fleet had been. His tactical officers were already presenting reports about the demonstration. The humans had weapons that could penetrate Zephyrian shields, ships that moved faster than anything in their navy, and coordination that suggested communication technology beyond galactic standards. "Sir," his aide asked nervously, "what are your orders?" Veltar considered his options. Military action seemed futile against an enemy with such overwhelming technological advantages. Economic pressure was impossible when his own economy was collapsing from the loss of human trade. Pride demanded resistance, but survival suggested negotiation. "Contact the other council members," he said finally. "It seems we need to discuss new terms with the humans, and this time, we will listen more carefully to what they have to say." 6 weeks after the fleet demonstrations, a very different delegation arrived at New Geneva. The alien ships that approached the human capital world moved slowly and transmitted respectful requests for permission to enter human space. Gone were the arrogant demands and dismissive attitudes of 2 years ago. Ambassador Jake Morrison stood in the same conference room where he had once begged for reasonable peace terms. But everything had changed. The walls now displayed images of human achievements, gleaming cities, advanced space stations, and artistic works that showed the depth of human culture. The aliens who entered this room would see humanity at its finest. High Commander Veltar was the first to arrive, his blue-black shell polished but his posture humble. Behind him walked Chancellor Kixmoth, his gaseous form flickering with nervous colors. The crystalline hegemony representative moved carefully, its diamond surface reflecting the room's lights. Morrison watched them take their seats at the conference table. This table was different from the one at the Galactic Council station. Here all chairs were the same height. No one sat higher or lower than anyone else. It was a subtle but important message about how these negotiations would proceed. President Sullivan entered the room followed by her advisors. General Hayes wore her dress uniform with its new decorations. Dr. Carter carried files containing humanity's terms. Admiral Rodriguez joined them via quantum communication from her flagship, her image appearing on a wall screen as if she were present in the room. "Welcome to New Geneva," President Sullivan said formally. "We appreciate your willingness to travel here for these discussions." Chancellor Kicksmoth's colors shifted to apologetic green. "Madam President, the Council wishes to express regret for our previous negotiations. We failed to treat humanity with the respect you deserved." The words hung in the air like a formal surrender. Morrison remembered standing in the council chamber 2 years ago, watching these same beings laugh at human proposals. Now they spoke of respect and regret. High Commander Veltar leaned forward in his chair. "The evidence I presented against humanity was false, manufactured to justify actions that were based on fear rather than justice. I formally retract all accusations and apologize for this deception." Dr. Carter made notes but showed no emotion. They had known about the false evidence for months. Human intelligence networks had discovered the truth long ago, but hearing the admission was still satisfying. "The Council offers new terms," Chancellor Kicksmoth continued. "Full recognition of human sovereignty over all claimed territories, mutual defense agreements against external threats, technology-sharing partnerships based on voluntary exchange." President Sullivan listened carefully to each proposal. They were everything humanity had wanted 2 years ago and more. The aliens were offering genuine partnership instead of demanding submission. Morrison stood to present humanity's response. "We appreciate these offers, but humanity has developed its own terms during our time away from galactic society." He activated a display showing human territorial claims. The map had expanded significantly during the 2 years of isolation. Human exploration fleets had discovered and claimed dozens of new worlds while the galaxy argued about their absence. "We claim sovereignty over these territories," Morrison announced. "Recognition of human independence in all internal matters. No alien oversight or interference in human governance. Equal representation in any galactic body that makes decisions affecting human interests." The alien delegates studied the map with growing surprise. Humanity now controlled nearly 3 times the territory they had possessed before the failed negotiations. Their isolation had not been retreat, but expansion. General Hayes presented the military terms. "Human space will be defended by human forces. We will consider mutual defense agreements with species that treat us as equals, but we will never again submit to alien military oversight or restrictions on our fleet size." Admiral Rodriguez's image spoke from the wall screen. "Our recent demonstrations showed only a fraction of human military capability. We prefer peace, but we are prepared for any alternative." The aliens exchanged glances that contained volumes of unspoken communication. They had seen what human technology could do. None of them wanted to face it in actual combat. Dr. Carter presented the scientific cooperation terms. "We are willing to share certain technologies with partners who respect our sovereignty. But the days of free access to human innovation are over. Knowledge will be exchanged fairly or not at all." President Sullivan took control of the final presentation. "The galaxy must understand that humanity has changed. We tried diplomacy before, and were dismissed as primitive upstarts. We tried cooperation and were treated as subjects. Now we offer partnership, but only on terms of genuine equality." The negotiations continued for 3 days. Every detail was discussed and refined. The aliens made counteroffers, but they were careful and respectful. They had learned that humanity would simply walk away again if treated poorly. High Commander Veltar proved surprisingly helpful in working out military cooperation details. His species had been humanity's enemies, but he showed genuine respect for human capabilities. "Your tactical innovations could benefit the entire galaxy," he admitted. "If shared freely, they could protect us all from external threats." Chancellor Kixmoth worked on the economic agreements. The Altarians desperately needed human trade to restart their failing economy, but they were willing to pay fair prices instead of demanding tribute. The final signing ceremony took place in New Geneva's main government building. Representatives from 12 species put their marks on documents that established a new galactic order. The New Geneva Accords recognized humanity as a major power with all the rights and responsibilities that entailed. President Sullivan signed the human copy with steady hands. This agreement establishes humanity as an equal partner in galactic civilization. We enter this partnership with hope, but also with clear understanding. We will honor our commitments as long as others honor theirs. Ambassador Morrison watched the alien delegates prepare to leave. Their ships would carry news of the agreements to every corner of the galaxy. Humanity was no longer an outsider begging for acceptance. They were a power that others courted for alliance. As the last alien vessel departed, Morrison stood at his office window looking out at New Geneva's skyline. The city had grown during humanity's isolation, its towers reaching toward the stars. With confident ambition, Admiral Rodriguez's final report arrived via quantum communication. Long-range sensors detect no hostile alien movements toward human space. The new patrol routes are operational. Humanity's borders are secure. Captain Danny Wright, commanding the newest ship in the human fleet, received a message from an alien trader requesting permission to enter human space. The tone was respectful, almost reverent. The galaxy had learned to speak to humans with proper courtesy. Permission granted, Wright responded, then added with quiet satisfaction, "Welcome to the New Order." President Sullivan addressed the nation that evening. 2 years ago, we walked away from a table where we were not welcome. Today, we signed agreements as equals with those same species. We proved that sometimes you must leave the game to change the rules. The galaxy had learned its lesson the hard way. Never mistake human patience for weakness. Never underestimate what humans can accomplish when pushed to their limits. And never forget that the species willing to walk away from an unfair deal might return with the power to dictate better terms. Humanity had taken its place among the stars not as subjects or supplicants, but as equals who had earned their respect. Through strength, innovation, and unbreakable determination,